Hi, this is Robert Holzhauser, and for my project, I wanted to see if I could use databases to find opportunities consistent with what Wade Cook proposed in his book from the late 90s called The Wall Street Money Machine, where basically he proposed looking for stocks that he called rolling stocks that have a cyclical and predictable pattern approximately every few weeks of going from some low cycle point to some high point where you would buy low and sell high, wait for it to go back to the low point, buy it again, sell it again at the high point, and that there's many stocks have some predictability because they're really consistent with that type of a pattern. And I chose to do MySQL as the database for that pattern, for looking for that pattern. So let me show you the ERD that I was working with. So I had a table that had all of the stock symbols for the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, loaded those up, and essentially what I did in loading those was I used Excel to create a formula that would help me write the insert statements, and then for the smaller files, essentially copied and pasted into my MySQL window, and for the larger file of the actual history, which had stock prices from 1972 until 2018. So there was over 1 million rows of data there. So what I did there is I basically created in the same way with an Excel, I created a text file that was a SQL file, like called it a .SQL file, zipped it up, put it on GitHub, and then loaded it with wget, just like we did earlier in the semester. So ultimately, I put these into an opportunity table. One thing, I did some normalization. It came with the exchange and the industry in every row, so I split that out so there was a separate table for the exchange and for the industry sector and sub piece. I thought going into this that it was going to be really useful to have a date dimension. I didn't end up making as much use of that as I thought I would, but so I created that table at one point, and ultimately what I was able to do was to come up with this list of 20 stocks that have had, over the far right column, the number of times that they've had a cycle like that goes from low to high, that goes between 15% and 30%. And so the number of times I thought was a good approximation, the number of months, for how reliable the pattern was. So some of the data that I was looking at was I was taking grouping by company and by month, and then I was looking at, and this is a view I created, and then I was looking at inside of that monthly period, what's the minimum of the low price and the maximum of the high price, to give you a quick view of what the raw data looked like. It was something like this, and just kind of scanning across that, which, and by the way, it was not even sorted, but scanning across that, it's really hard to see that kind of an opportunity necessarily, but using some aggregate functions, it worked out pretty good. So I'm not sure if I'm going to invest in any of these or not, but I'm definitely going to take a closer look at that possibility. Thank you very much.